What is going on, my friends? I'm going to use this video to give you guys some riding impressions of this 2024 KTM 500 EXC-F. So the focus is going to be on the stock ECU and ignition mapping for the US model. The reason for that is, in my research in the dual sport segment, I have found that the ECU and ignition mapping subject comes up quite frequently across multiple manufacturers and models. It's very popular, and I've seen it come up time and time again. And I would just like to get kind of some baseline opinion on this, because this bike's totally stock now, with the exception of I've added double take mirrors and some Tusk luggage. So performance-wise, engine and chassis, I've done nothing to it. Everything's stock. Gearing, tires, engine, I've changed nothing. So I just want to ride the bike. I'm out here outside of Las Vegas, Nevada. Temperature is probably high 70s today. Currently where I'm filming this clip, I'm probably sitting around 4,000 feet elevation, but I'm going to vary between probably 2,000 to 5,000 feet between my riding over the course of the day. And I just think maybe this would be valuable for some people out there that are doing some research that can make some more informed decisions based on perhaps some insight and opinion that I can provide on the way this bike rides. So the riding I'll be doing is pretty easy. It's a lot of dirt roads and double track. I'm not going to be doing anything crazy, no hard enduro today, but I'll just kind of run the bike through some paces and just some ideas that come to mind as I'm riding, and say what I think about how the bike rides. So let's go ahead and run through some scenarios and see what we get. All right, so I'm going to demonstrate a running issue that I've noticed with the 2024 KTM 500 EXC-F that this bike has. It definitely does it when it's cold, and I've noticed it will even do it when it's warmed up. So what happens is, if you double blip the throttle, this bike will often stall. Sometimes they'll even do it on a single blip. So this is a cold start. I haven't started the bike in like 3 days. It's not cold outside. It's about 78 degrees Fahrenheit. But like I say, the bike hasn't been started. So I'll wake up the battery, then I'll start it. I'll let it warm up for a few minutes, and then I'll rev it and I'll show you guys what's going on. So obviously we know this is related to the stock mapping, the ECU, you know, based on the information that I've gathered doing research, is that the aftermarket ECUs will correct this. But that's kind of why I'm doing this, is one, just to show what it does stock, and then two, so that we have kind of some before and after comparisons as I, you know, do my initial riding impressions of this bike, and then as I mod it. So let me go ahead and start it, warm it up. I'm just going to do a battery wake up. Let it sit for a second, start it. All right. So I'm going to let it run for at least a minute. All right, so the bike's been idling for about a minute and a half or so. Let's go ahead and blip the throttle, and you'll see sometimes this thing will really hiccup even on one blip, and it will usually stall if you blip it twice. See that? Look at that, it doesn't even want to do it at all. It's kind of like a quick blip when I do it. Like if I go slow, it'll rev right up. But when I blip it quick, look at that, stalls it out. So that's definitely a stock mapping issue. It gets a little bit better when it warms up. It won't do it if the bike is rolling. Like if you're in gear, you can blip it and it doesn't really have problems. I think that just has more to do with, you know, the momentum and the fact that the wheel is spinning, and, you know, the input on the chain is obviously keeping the engine running when the bike is moving. But as you can see, I can't even do a single blip when it's cold. Maybe I'll have to warm it up a little bit, ride it around, and see if it gets better when it's warm. Other thing I'll mention is I have not adjusted the idle speed on this bike since I bought it. That could be related to it. I think it has more to do with just the map in general. But you know, perhaps the idle speed could help that out. Maybe I'll experiment with that too. But you'll see, man, you cannot blip this thing. Look at that. It just won't do it. So I mean, the bike is probably warmed up by now. Like I say, it's 78 degrees Fahrenheit outside. It's not too hot to touch, but it is warm to touch. But yeah. There we go. No. Boom, stalls. So yeah, that's one issue I've noticed with the stock map. Okay, so I'm going to do a little test, and I'm going to get the bike moving without using the throttle. So I'm just going to let the clutch out really slow, first gear, and then we'll see how far up I can shift without even throttling the bike. So let's give that a shot. That'd be an interesting little test. All right, first gear, no throttle. Let's just let the clutch out. Okay, we are idling in first gear. I don't know if I'm going to get past second. Ooh, yeah, it's just barely chomping in second. Let me see, once I get over this little incline here, I might be able to shift to third. So, as you can see, my hand's not even touching the throttle this whole time. Let's see, I might be able to pull third off, but I'm kind of cheating the test because I'm going slightly downgrade now. All right, that's third. Dude, I might be able to pull this off. Let's see. Let's go fourth. Oh man, it don't like that. I think fifth is gonna stall it. I might need to get my hand close to the throttle here. I'm not gonna use it, just in case the bike jerks when it stalls. Ooh, it's balancing out. I might hit fifth. That's fifth. Oh man, that's getting bad. All right, I'm not going to go any further. That's kind of just a weird test, but it just came to mind, so I tried it. So I was able to launch the bike. I guess launch isn't the right term. I was able to get the bike moving without using the throttle. Stock map, stock ECU. So what I'll do on this test, this is basically just going to be the luggability test on this pretty simple road. It's rocky, it's not smooth, but it's pretty well flat. Anyways, I'm just going to take off, and I'm just going to try to get in the tallest gear possible, essentially without trying to wring the bike out. So basically, what's the tallest gear I can maintain just at a minimum throttle on a road like this. Second gear, third gear, fourth gear. You'll notice that I'm like barely, maybe even going quarter throttle right now, if that. Fifth gear. So this is going to easily do sixth gear at probably quarter throttle or less, and I'm going about 39 miles per hour on a relatively flat hard pack road. 40 miles per hour, just lugging along sixth gear, no problem. I don't even think I'm doing quarter throttle. So, and I've determined this riding this bike. I've had this bike about 3 months now, and I've determined that it lugs pretty well stock. Stock tires, stock gearing, stock everything. The only thing I've done to this bike is I added the double take mirrors, and I've got luggage on here. So yeah, I mean, I've multiple times found myself saying that I feel that this bike lugs pretty well. So sixth gear, 38 miles per hour, just chugging along. Okay, this time I'm just gonna get the bike moving and then just rip through the gears. So I'll just do kind of a light starting first, and we'll just see what it feels like ripping through the gears. My traction is a little bit crappy because I'm still running the factory Twinduro tires. But, you know, I still think this bike still rips. I mean, That's 6th gear. Back tire is floating a little bit. I'm only going 73 miles per hour. But, I mean, this bike's got some balls still. They even stopped. And I say that because I've just seen so much talk about these ECUs and how detuned the bikes are. You know, I've not ridden one modified. So, I mean, it doesn't have like arm ripping power. But I mean, that's still ripping. And the bike comes alive about in the half throttle range. Off the bottom doesn't really feel like nothing, but you know, I'm even just cruising 54 miles per hour 6th gear right now, and if I roll into the throttle, I mean, yeah, right there about half, you do start to get a little bit of pull. It's not ripping your arms out of the sockets, but you're holding on. So 68 miles per hour, just like half throttle, maybe a little more. Through the gears test again. This was actually the stretch of road I was waiting for. It just smooths out quite a bit. And I don't know that I really did a satisfactory rip on the last one in terms of like, you know, running up to full throttle in each gear. So let's try that this time. Alright, so we are 6th gear, full throttle, 83, 84, 85 miles per hour. I think I'm going faster than that now, but I don't want to look down. 88. And that was even with some tire spin. So, you know, I haven't seen what this bike will do full speed yet. I'll have to test that on a hard surface. But that was 88 miles per hour on hard pack, but I was getting some tire spin. So kind of a rip through the gears. My impression of how that feels is pretty soft on the bottom. Comes alive in the mid-range of both the throttle and the power band. So this bike truly all the power is in the mid. You know, I don't know what a dyno would have to say about that. But, and then on the top, full throttle, I mean, it's still pulling, but it does start to go kind of flat a little bit in terms of felt power. You know, and that's a little bit of a hard thing to analyze, because when you're going 80 miles per hour, it's kind of, you know, I'm looking at the road and I have to focus on what I'm doing too. So, but just, I guess, kind of my subconscious feeling to that is it's in the mid. It feels like it comes alive mid-throttle, and right through that mid-range of the power delivery is really where you can feel the meat. Like even right now, I'm just sitting at like third throttle, 6th gear, 45 miles per hour. And as I roll into that half, that's when it starts to pull. And then boom, yeah, like half to 3/4. Yeah, it's still got, you know what? It's got a pretty solid pull through the top. It seems to stay consistent in terms of, you know, pulling into your arms. Pulled off on a side road. It's a little bit more winding, but still well groomed. A little bit looser, light gravel. Let's do a similar test to one of the first tests we did, where I'm just going to basically stay at low throttle input, and we'll just see how the bike lugs around. Second, third gear, yeah, a little bit sliding around with these tires. I did actually air down a little bit for this ride. I don't know what pressure I'm at, but I just went by feel. I didn't have a gauge with me. So what is that, 4th gear now? Maybe 1/4 to 3rd throttle. A little bit washboardy, gravelly, but not thick. Okay, so let's see. Make sure I was in 4th gear. Okay, back in 1st. 2nd. 3rd. now I'm like not even probably quarter throttle, third gear, just chugging up this. I am going uphill. It may not be easy to see on the camera. It's not steep, but it is up. And I think the bike, like, let's see, I'm just going to try to just dwindle the throttle down. I'm just barely like 8th throttle, 1/8, just barely just chugging this thing up this hill. I've said over and over again, and I'm probably going to say it multiple more times, I feel like this bike lugs pretty good. You know, again, I really don't have anything to go off of. I shouldn't say anything. It's my first KTM, and it's the first 500 series bike I've ridden. You know, I feel like even as a US model, all choked up with the, you know, as everyone's saying, these problematic ECUs, I feel like it does good. I mean, and I'm just offering these as my riding impressions so that we've got baseline here. And then, you know, if I put an aftermarket ECU on this bike, we can look back and see how my opinion changes once I've ridden a modified version. Just chugging, third gear, no problem. I could probably even shift up to 4th. There you go. That's definitely a little bit closer to a stall, or maybe a flame out, as I hear a lot of people refer to them. But that's 4th gear, just chugging along, 25, 24 miles per hour. Scenery is getting a little more interesting in here. Just been kind of chugging along. I'm taking it pretty easy because this bike does slip around a lot with those stock twin duro tires on. I believe they're a Continental brand. You know, it's the first time I've ridden it aired down, and obviously that's helping. I know that. I should have done that sooner, but I just didn't feel like dealing with it in my previous rides, airing back up for the highway jaunts. But you see how this thing just really just chugs back out of it. It comes back to life. Seems to do that pretty well. I'm not sure what gear I'm in, either 2nd or 3rd now. I know this is easy terrain. Some people out there probably hoping to see some more difficult riding terrain, but I just want to get some baseline data for my opinion as a rider, my felt experience on the bike, stock ECU, and an emphasis on the ECU and then mapping. So you see, I think I'm in 3rd gear now, and just lugs right out. Let's see, I'll just let it dwindle down. It just comes back to life. Look at that, I'm just coasting to like 12 miles per hour in 3rd gear. And you could hear it getting close to that point where it'll stall. 14 miles per hour, I'm just clinging to life. Road surfaces, I'm kind of just gonna maybe hot rod it a little bit, just a little bit, because I don't have the boots in the tubes, so I don't want to have an issue out here. But let's just kind of play with the throttle, kind of blipping it. I'm in 4th gear and just kind of getting on and off the throttle so you can hear that engine. I feel like it's responsive. You know, as I mentioned, when this bike is idling in neutral, you can blip it and it will stall. And I've demonstrated that as well. I think I'll demonstrate it again. But when the bike is rolling, it doesn't have that issue. You can just keep grabbing that throttle and it's fine. I'm just constantly blipping it. Let's see, let's go no throttle to full, 4th gear, and that was like really at from a slow speed, so it made the bike work. I'm still in 4th gear, just ripping around. Seems pretty responsive to me. Up here, let's experiment. The gravel's getting thicker. 2nd gear. Yeah, gravel's getting a lot thicker here. Just blip around in here in 2nd gear, see how she feels. Ooh, let's not fall over. Standing up in gravel is never a good idea. That's about the time you always start falling over. Just gonna kind of go over some of these obstacles to feel it. I feel like this bike tractors over, man. It just tractors over little obstacles. I haven't done any, you know, hard enduro. I've done some light obstacles on it, and it seems to blip up over everything. Yeah, it definitely gets a little bit flat on top. I mean, I suppose most engines do go flat at some point on top. That's not uncommon, but I think maybe the 500s do especially so, at least in the stock form it is. Third gear. Doing a little bit of drifting around, just feeling it up. Just getting on and off the throttle, just checking response. Yeah, it's definitely fun to come off of like a low speed and then get into it. That's where the bike just feels really fun. Bottom to mid. Once you get at the top of the gear, it kind of just doesn't feel as exciting in terms of the power delivery. I haven't been in this road in a long time. Starting to get into the trees. It's probably been a few years since I've been out here. Never on a bike. Brought my truck out here a time or two. Scenery is definitely improving. Let's see, get into a little tighter terrain here. 2nd gear. I don't think this road goes very much farther, but a little bit tighter and rockier to give us some moderate trail riding. Easy trail riding, I probably should say. Don't want to trigger anybody. But I'm just kind of really trying to ride slow. I feel like that seems to be the point of contention, where people are suggesting these bikes are stall prone or will suffer from flame outs. So I've been consistently just getting this thing down at the really bottom of its gears and blipping around. So I'm going to do another idle and blip scenario. I did this from a cold start already. Now we're going to do it after the bike's been ridden for a few hours. So I'm just going to start it up and I'm just going to blip the throttle and show you what it does. It stalls. So that obviously tells us there is an issue with the ignition mapping, because you should be able to blip the throttle and it should rev right up. As I demonstrated at the cold start, if you go slowly, it's fine. But when you grip that throttle and you just do a quick blip, it either doesn't rev or it stalls. So it does that cold or warm. Now again, as I've mentioned, it doesn't do that when the bike is rolling. I think the explanation for that, as I've stated previously, is that because the internals are being rotated and there is some force, you know, on the tire and the gearing, that keeps the engine running. It doesn't have that blip issue, but it does do it in neutral at idle. A little bit of third gearing. I guess I should sporty it up a little bit, huh? Sporty. How you like that word? Oh yeah, oh yeah. No problem. No problems here. She's just fine, blipping around in third. Another thing I should mention is that I do very little clutch work generally. I'm not a feather the clutch type of guy. So, and I haven't really done any on this entire ride. I pretty much either have the clutch in or out most of the time. So I'm relying on this test is really demonstrating the bike's ability to just run itself without, you know, assistance from the clutch. I'm just putting in minimal throttle, no clutch feathering, and I'll just let it get down to those points in the RPM where it's, you know, like right now, if I just slow down, you can see I'm going 10 miles per hour, third gear, and just barely touching the throttle above idle. Keep it alive. And it's worth kind of talking about that subject because it's a common technique to power your way through things, right? So like when you're just getting into the power, you know, like let's say half throttle and above, that's a common technique to getting through things, powering through obstacles. So if you can let this bike get down to that idle, again, like I mentioned, you're kind of demonstrating that tight terrain capability. No, it's not a perfect representation, obviously, but you know, if this thing can be going 10 miles per hour in third gear and just barely touch the throttle, keep it alive, I think that shows that it lugs well. And that's with the stock gearing, 1448. So, you know, imagine if you went down to like a 13 in the front and a 52 in the rear. You know, you would have some serious tractor-like capability. Got a boulder here, maybe I can do a little enduro stunt over. Booyah! Popped off that. Didn't even try, she just bucked. You could have jumped that sucker. I think this was a fairly smooth road too. We can liven it up kind of the way we did on the way in. Fourth gear, I think fourth gear was about the sweet spot. I could definitely shift to fifth, because this bike just allows you to just be in the lower end of the gear and the throttle. Like right now I'm getting up to like half throttle in fourth, and it's basically wanting me to shift in terms of the way it feels. Wanting me to shift up, that is. The bike just feels so much, I guess I should say natural to just ride it in the lower RPMs. It just, at least for me, I don't feel like having the bike revved out all the time. Whereas I might be more compelled to do so, say like on a 250cc two-stroke. Alright, a little bit of an uphill jaunt here. Rough road. I know I say rough and people probably look at it and they're like, oh, I've been through rock gardens with boulders the size of cars. Yeah, I'm not saying it's the Rubicon. I'm just saying it's rough. These roads out here in southern Nevada, it's very common for them to be heavily comprised of rocks. So they're rough. They're just, you know, the rocks aren't necessarily always big. You know, a lot of these rocks are, you know, golf ball size, baseball size, and partially buried. But make no mistake, these roads are comprised like easily 50% or more of rock. Like, look at this thing. It's just rocks. We got rough roads out here, no doubt about it. I guess I'm just saying that because sometimes I hear people kind of, you know, get in these debates. Oh, that's not rough. No, I think those individuals are confusing the difference between the size of rocks. It doesn't have to be big rocks to be a rough road. Or perhaps they're blurring the difference between, you know, a rough road and professional level enduro. No, this is not professional level enduro. You are correct. But this is a rough road. So again, you know, pretty much the common theme with this bike, in my opinion, and today is just kind of just lugging, chugging around, and feels fine to me. Feels fairly responsive. You twist the throttle and it goes. And I haven't been not able to motor my way out of anything thus far. And I'm also including some of this opinion from other rides I've done previously. Obviously everything that's been on today's footage is just easy roads and two-track. But, you know, I've done some other riding, and I've done a little bit of single track so far, and I've just never had a situation where the bike wouldn't motor through it. I think the biggest drawback I've determined on this bike in stock form so far, with respect to the bike itself, is the tires. Like, you even see that where I was late on a downshift and the bike just stays alive. You know what I mean? There's other bikes that would have stalled in that scenario. I've had bikes stall when you come hard braking into a corner without the clutch, and you just lock the back wheel up and stall it, and then the bike starts again because of the momentum. Bump started once you release the brake. This bike's not even stopping. Not that I've noticed. It just, because I'll do that. I'll brake coming into corners without the clutch, and I'm not slamming on the brakes, locking them up. I'm getting the combination of engine braking and mechanical braking, and the bike hasn't stalled on me yet. I've had it stall a couple times on obstacles where I just didn't use the best technique, quite frankly, going into them. You know, I should have either let the clutch out a little faster or throttled up a little bit more, that sort of thing. Where I don't really feel it was the bike's fault. And you know, again, maybe my mind will change on that after I ride with an aftermarket ECU, and I'll find, oh wow, the bike is just so much more capable. You know, I understand that possibility is there, and maybe that just is even just a fact. But again, I have to just kind of stick to just my impressions riding this thing and just give you guys an honest assessment. And I feel like the bike is quite capable in stock form. I really do. I don't even know what gear I'm in now. I think I'm in 4th gear. I'm just chugging up this hill. Yeah, it's got to be 4th gear based on the speed, 33 miles per hour. Could even be 5th. She just lugs and chugs. Let's do some downhill. Sorry for that wind noise, had the visor up. Alright, so I'm in 2nd gear. I could pretty much get in any gear I want down the hill of this grade. And pretty much idle is what I've noticed with this bike. So now I'm in 3rd gear. Don't even have my hand on the throttle. The bike will idle all the way down this hill. Perhaps that is not surprising, but again, look, I'll even shift to 4th. All it's going to do is actually speed up. Let's go 5th. And give it a second. 16 miles per hour. 6th. So we're in 6th gear. It'll just idle down this hill. It'll just pick up speed. Now I'm going 19. And probably hit 20 any second here. Haven't even touched the throttle yet. So 6th gear, just idling down this hill. So some of my key takeaways, I shouldn't say key takeaways, the key takeaway is that I feel like this bike runs all right. I hear a lot of bad things about the stock ECU, the stock ignition map, but without comparing it back to back with an aftermarket one, I feel that the bike is very capable and it runs okay. You know, I'm sure my opinion could be changed on that after riding a modified one, and I'll say, wow, you know, just look how much this bike's been unlocked and opened up and it performs so much better. Well, that's great if that's the case, and I'm happy for that to turn out to be true. But all I'm saying is that this bike in stock form is totally capable, and a competent rider can more than get it done. And as we know, a lot of people that pay attention to motorcycle things, the professional riders can just do absolutely amazing things on these bikes. So that's my key takeaway is the bike is probably more capable than you are. So if you're thinking about buying a bike, if you're thinking about buying one of these KTMs or a Husky or Gas or a Honda or a Yamaha or whatever, just buy whatever bike is speaking to you. I'm still in 6th gear. I haven't even touched the throttle since I shifted up. It'll just idle all the way down to the main drag here. I don't know what the degrees are on this hill, but I'm probably, I don't know if I had to guess, we'll say 10 degrees or so. 10 degrees of incline. And I'm in 6th gear. I could be in any gear I want and just idle down this hill one-handed. So the bike runs. They say it's lean. Sure, I'm sure that's true. But it runs. Shift back into 5th. Just cuz. 4th. 4th is probably the sweet spot. You know what? It doesn't run any different. Because the only thing it changes is how quickly it's rolling. It's changed 5 miles per hour, shifting 2 gears. I went from 18 to 13, now 12. So, again, no surprises there. That's just gear ratios at work. It's actually idling exactly the same in 4th gear as it would in 6th gear. It's just probably that relationship between mass and energy and all that type of stuff. Just physics at work. Well, let's see, we go flat and then even slight incline. Ooh, this could stall it. Nope, still didn't. That was even slight incline. Flat to slight incline, and it stayed right alive. Hardly even changed. All right, so my initial riding impressions of the stock ECU and ignition mapping on this bike, I would say, are actually pretty good. Now, my opinion is subjective because I haven't ridden a modified version of these bikes, so maybe my opinion will change after that happens. But the reason I say they're good in several parts is because, for one, in my research, I have found, you know, I have heard and seen comments on the interwebs of people that have even gone as far as to say that these bikes are unrideable stock. Obviously, they're exaggerating and kind of spewing some opinion on that, but I just don't believe that's true. Now, I've been riding dirt bikes and motorcycles for over 25 years. I've ridden various makes and models, and I do not feel that this bike is unrideable stock. Matter of fact, I feel that it does fine. I mean, you can tell that it's held back a little bit. I mean, like I say, it doesn't have like arm ripping power. It's not like scary to ride it. You know what I mean? I've ridden motorcycles that had power deliveries that were wild, you know, like 500cc 2-strokes and 450cc motocross bikes that, you know, they feel wild and powerful. This bike doesn't feel wild. Like, you know, it's got that mid-range grunt where it comes alive, but, you know, on the bottom, on the top, it's not like terrifying. But it's not unrideable. So, you know, I'm not sure where that's coming from with people. Maybe they just, you know, are just speed demons and they say those sort of things. But the bike is certainly rideable stock. I've done everything I've set out to do on it. Like I say, I haven't done anything professional level, wild, hard enduro on it, but it's doable. A competent rider can take this bike out stock and get it done. And the reason I feel like sharing that is, again, the fact that I've seen so much interest in the ECU mapping subject in the dual sport segment. And with that in mind, I feel that there's a lot of riders out there that could be just fine on this bike stock. You may not be the type of person that needs to go spend that extra money doing those mods. You might just be just fine stock. I could, in theory, leave this bike stock and ride it. Now, with that said, obviously, given the fact that I'm doing this video as a baseline, yeah, I'm probably going to put an ECU on it. I've got some speed demon in me, so I'm a little bit curious to see what that's about. But in theory, I could leave this bike alone to ride it. This bike has enough power The delivery is smooth. It is not unrideable. You can, if you're a good rider and you pay attention to what gear you're in, you know your skill level, and you know when to use the clutch, I don't see why you would be stalling this bike or having flameouts so far, where I've been riding it in, you know, elevations from 2 to 7 or 8,000 feet total. Today I didn't go that high, but I've ridden it on some other days, and I think I've got a little over 700 miles total on the bike as it is. So I think it's rideable. I think it's doable. So we'll see. Once I get some experience on a modified version, I'll follow up and say what I think about it then. I mean, obviously we can expect that if you improve the output overall and the bike becomes, you know, more of a monster, just a wheelie popping machine, yeah, that's going to be fun and that's exciting. But at the end of the day, this bike is rideable stock, and there are people out there that could just leave it alone, ride it as is. You don't need to spend $1,000 on an ECU. I'm just saying. That's my thoughts right now. We'll see how that changes in the future. So anyways, thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the follow-up on this.